Hello and welcome to another episode of the Mastermind, Body, and Spirit Show. I am your host, Matt Belair. Today's guest is the author of the national best-selling book, You Are the One, and is widely considered the next generation leader in the field of personal development by everyone ranging from Larry King, Jack Canfield, Marianne Williamson, and more. He has been featured on Larry King Live, Fox and Friends, Drew Show, and more. A charismatic, visionary, and transformational leader, he offers a fresh, bold look at spiritual awareness for a whole new generation. For over 20 years, he has been inspiring audiences around the world, from the first time he spoke in front of 3,000 people at the age of 8 to speaking in over 300 venues by the age of 18. To helping organizations develop authentic leadership and achieve extraordinary performance over the last decade. His electrifying presentations not only offer real-world practical ideas and soul-stirring wisdom, but also ignite the heart and inspire courageous action. His mission is simple: to awaken and inspire people across the world to access inner freedom, live authentically, and fulfill their true life's purpose. Welcome back to the show, Kute Blackson. What's up, brother?
Good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man, it's nice to see you again. We had to talk a little bit before the show, but I was saying you've been on a tear since we talked last. You've been all over. You haven't stopped.
All over, nonstop. I just got back from Tulum, Mexico, Tulum, London, Ghana in a week, and the week before that I was in India. So it's just been nonstop. Next week I'm going to Sydney, back to Bali, to Ghana, and just rolling.
Amazing. That's a lot. What did you think of Tulum? Tulum's been coming up on the radar a lot for me lately, of just a very great spot for high vibe people. Did you see that there, or what was the community like?
Tulum is magic. I've been going there for 6-7 years. Magical. I mean, I want everyone to know, but I don't want too many people to know, because then everyone descends there. But it's a very, very, very special place energetically. It's hard to describe the frequency, the energy of the place. It's just, it has a pulse, and I think one of the things about Tulum is it has the largest underwater system in the world of connected underwater rivers called cenotes, and that I think really has an energetic impact on one's consciousness. So it's a beautiful place.
Amazing. Yeah, I've heard the same thing. So I just got back from Egypt with Nassim Haramein and the Resonance Science Foundation. So, the energy of the pyramids and different sacred spots along the land. You've traveled a lot.
Yes.
And you speak a lot. Do you have how do I phrase this? Do you have like an intention where the group of people that you want to speak to, or do you just kind of get pulled in that direction? Because it seems like you have options. You could speak to youth, you could speak to older generations. Do you set the intention for who you want to speak and how you want to serve, or do you kind of get led?
Honestly, I think most of these days I speak to, it really depends. Like, I'm going to Sydney, I'm speaking, it's a public audience, so everyone is invited. But most of my audience really are those that are on a conscious spiritual path, usually folks that they've read a few books, and they're wanting to go to that next level, they're wanting to expand to that next level. Most of my people that gravitate towards my work are really serious in terms of their own spiritual growth, their own evolution, their own personal development path. But from a very young age, my father's a minister, had 300 churches in Ghana, West Africa, and we didn't grow up with a lot of money. So where I grew up was this small apartment right behind my father's church. And so my room was literally tiny. I mean, 8 by 10, you could put a bed in it. You could barely move. And I remember feeling so frustrated because I felt my dreams were so big, but my circumstance was so small. And so I would sneak into my father's church in the middle of the night, like around 8, 9, 10 p.m. And I would speak. I sneak into the church with the lights off. I would speak for 2-3 hours a night to the empty chairs. People don't realize that about me. They see me speak now. Oh, you're amazing. Wow, you're gifted. And yes, I mean, I do have some kind of blessing in terms of speaking and communicating. But what people don't realize is from around age 12 to 18, for about about 4 days a week, 2 to 3 hours, I would speak to the empty chairs in the darkness, speaking my heart out, just adding value to invisible people. And so I always felt from a very young age a connection to souls around the world, these souls. And I just remember people's faces lighting up and transforming. And so when I speak now, it's really humbling, regardless of who I'm in front of. I was in El Salvador recently. I spoke to 136 of the most influential business leaders at the YPO, Young Presidents Organization, guys that are some billionaires, some most have 5, 10, 20,000 employees in their companies, guys that run airlines and hotels, and 136 from El Salvador, Costa Rica, Nicaragua, the surrounding area. CEOs flew into the room. That was kind of one audience. So a lot of my work is also geared towards impacting, let's just say, leaders and visionaries, because I feel as though they're in influential positions with platforms that they can then go out and impact people. But my favorite work is taking people through deep dive experiences, whether it's in a large group or a small group. My small group in Bali, larger group, 200-300 people. I mean, that's my joy. And so I feel this connection with my audience, whether I know them or not, because I felt it from a very young age, before I even met people. So I felt like everyone that comes to my work, whoever they are, is destined, is really destined.
That's incredible, man.
And so for me, it's a privilege. It's really whoever I'm in front of is a privilege to serve, because I get to be a part of their soul's evolution. I somehow get to participate in their awakening, their opening, their unraveling, their freeing themselves. Then that somehow affects the trajectory of their soul's journey, of their life path, like forever, for eternity. And so I take that responsibility very seriously, in a sense, not like some heavy thing, but it's sacred. It's a privilege. For me, it's not just, a business or a way to make some money or make a little part-time income or just be famous on YouTube. It's like the privilege to hold someone's soul, to be entrusted with their hearts and souls, which then, as a result of their transformation from my work, it's going to impact those around them. It's going to impact their children and their children and generations to come. So I think as leaders, as teachers, as coaches, as facilitators, as authors, we all have a sacred responsibility and contract and just destiny with those that we work with that is very just sacred. It's really sacred.
Yeah, man, I couldn't agree more. Sometimes in the conscious community, one of the things I'll reference is, people will be on the path and they're new to the path, and then sometimes their ego will get the best of them, where they might project themselves a little bit further ahead than they might be. And I think that can do damage because, if you're not quite there yet, let's say you're a yoga instructor and you've only gone for a few months, spirituality, consciousness, and you don't have the moves down yet. You can't, you're not going to educate the same way. But this is, what I say is this isn't woodworking, or this isn't, I don't know, something else. It is a sacred space. You know what I mean? And so to be honest and authentic with where you are is one, and then that intention that you're speaking of is massive. And if you can just do those two things, no matter what way you're serving is going to have massive impact. If you just say, hey, my intention here is to serve you to the highest that I can from where I stand, whether you're having a talk with a friend or you're out in public or whatever the case is, if you just go with those two intentions, that's really all you need. And then you build your experience from there. So, I love your intention, man. It's really powerful.
Yeah.
So I guess, what I'd ask is when you're working with people or you're doing a talk, do you have one message that comes from your book? I really like that we spoke last time. It really is about empowering yourself as a leader, going through your own process, understanding that you are the one is really beautiful. What is it that you really want to give your audiences, whether it's a CEO, whether it's a group of, teenagers in a high school? What are you hoping that they walk away from with?
Wow, it's a little hard to describe, but it's quite simple in a sense. Ultimately, I speak for myself. My intention is to help remind people ultimately of who they are and to help people reconnect with who they are. I believe that, I was just talking to someone about this the other day. It's not simply what you say, because words are just words. To me, words are an excuse for the vibration of your own being. words are an excuse to transmit your own state of consciousness. And so for me, it's not just about talking or transmitting a message verbally, but it's really about opening up or creating a space for my audience so that they can have a deeper feeling and sense of who they are, and ultimately remember who they are, reconnect with who they are, reconnect with their soul. So for me, it's less about giving people information, because I think information by itself is limited. I mean, there's millions of books out there on how to be enlightened, how to be liberated, how to be free, how to be happy, how to end suffering. I mean, it's just billions of books. And so if information by itself was enough, we'd all be liberated and enlightened. We'd all be Buddhas by now, you know? I mean, there's 7 keys to being Buddhas, you know, there's 18 steps to being Jesus. I mean, it's all out there. And so for me, my work essentially is yes, obviously I teach and I communicate, but my intention is I create experiences, experiential, immersive experiences that's really designed to help people become conscious and aware of their patterning and conditioning, and that's really also designed to help experientially help people unlock the layers of conditioning that we all have built up over time, from childhood, from growing up, from life as human beings. Because unless you're aware, the first step is awareness. Unless you're aware of the fact that you're conditioned, the degree to which you're conditioned, you can't really shift anything. And so awareness is the first key. So I help people become aware of their conditioning, and then I create experiences that help people free themselves of their conditioning. Because I really believe that as you free yourself from the layers of conditioning that you may have just been forced into or learned as a survival mechanism or tactic to either avoid pain or get love. And we often kind of get locked into this identity based on conditioning in terms of this is who we think what we end up being is who we think we are, but we're really not that. And so I think the more someone can free themselves of their patterns of conditioning, they can tap into a deeper sense of who they really are, a deeper sense of their power, a deeper sense of their wisdom, a deeper sense of their intuition, a deeper sense of their knowing innately, not from information or from what I say or from a book, but that source of wisdom inside. And so that's really what my work is about. My intention is to help people unravel and connect, and so that they can experience, you know, the freedom of their being, and from that place live that. You know, many times we think we're free, but we're just living out the conditioning of our past without even knowing. And so it's really about it's less about telling people about the menu and helping people eat the food, you know, that they get to cook themselves, so to speak. And so that's my intention when I work with people, when I facilitate, especially in my deep dive, let's say 8-day, 12-day events, you know, even some of my weekend stuff. Even when I speak for 2-3 hours, even though I'm inspiring people, it is to at least create an opening of getting people to question their reality, because sometimes we get so identified with who we think we are. We get so identified with our story. I'm this way. I'm not this way. I'm this kind of person. And I kind of come along and I get people to question their paradigms. Like, is that who you really are? Is it really? How do you know that? Can you be sure about that? What if you weren't that? And so that questioning, so we're people are holding so tightly to themselves as this. And so they start questioning, is it? Am I really? Is this me? Am I? Can I? What? And so hopefully something starts, the grip to their identified self starts loosening in the process, and then there's space where something more than before can open up, and they can start tapping into a deeper sense of the potential, but from the inside, not just adopting something I said or message from the outside. Okay, I'm enough. Yeah, I'm enough. But there's one thing to say it, it's another thing to feel it inside, because you've tapped into it. And so that's my intention. It's more experiential. It's more immersive. And, you know, yes, I tell stories and I teach, but that's just an excuse and a device to stir something and loosen things inside of our identified consciousness.
Amazing, man. I love it. Well, I had William Buhlman on the podcast last, and he works at the Monroe Institute for Consciousness, and he teaches astral projection. He's been able to astral project for years and can go out of body whenever. And he's like, this is normal stuff. I thought everybody was going to know it a few years after I figured it out. And so I'm asking him, okay, well, if we want to experience that, how do we do it? And he was so adamant the whole podcast about the first and most important step is letting go of all of that conditioning and everything that's come into you, as step one, because when we are born into our homes and in our environments, we're getting influence from our parents and then our community and then from our social setting and then from wherever we can get information from. And if you're old enough to be at the starting of the internet, then you would get it from your tribes. But now we have this internet influence in our schools and all these different things. And so as we're trying to navigate our reality and fit in and feel comfortable and not afraid and all that stuff, we're not even aware of all these
Influences, yeah.
um, influences that are coming in, and then we don't drop them off. One day when we're done high school, we carry that with us. So it seems that you're, voicing the exact same thing, is like, okay, first we got to figure out, what is really you? How do we identify with 100% your authentic core self, and
Right.
then build out from there. So do you have any favorite tools or things that people could do, or stories to just start there, and then
Yeah,
maybe how to
I
connect?
think just so people can have a real grasp as I answer your question, we're born. I believe that ultimately we're born free, and so I think it's important we remember that fact, that we're actually, just to have the conversation, we are actually freedom itself. We are born free. It's not like, well, we have to go become this thing we are that, and so to actually have that inherent remembrance is just, let's just start there, because that is the foundation. We are free. We just kind of forgot. And so even though you may not be fully in touch with your freedom, the fact is you can't not be free. It's just sort of covered up. And so just that foundation is a paradigm. It just shifts the paradigm as we otherwise we're searching and searching and searching, and that searching takes us away from what we already are. So as children, you look at a child is, especially when they're young, before all the BS conditioning, a child is in touch with their freedom. They will jump on a table and sing and dance and shout. They don't care if they can't sing like Michael Jackson or Celine Dion, or they don't care if they run on the table naked and they're a little fat. They're just free. They're in touch with the divine essence. They're not conditioned. And then we meet our parents, and our parents are crazy. They're just doing the best that they can do based on their life, based on their conditions, based on their grandparents, based on their parents, maybe pain, trauma, abuse. So we're born into this environment. We all have our stories. Maybe we were neglected, maybe emotional abandonment, maybe we were beaten, maybe we were raped, maybe we were screamed at, maybe, I mean, the list goes on from the most intense to just minimal, sort of like our needs weren't met, and so as children our nervous systems are very sensitive. And so as we're in this environment, we often are finding two things happen. The first thing is we start learning all sorts of defense mechanisms to just shut down, disconnect, and not feel the pain. So we start suppressing parts of ourselves. We start suppressing all the emotions that are coming up that we don't necessarily know how to deal with, and we start pressing that down just to ultimately survive. But all that stuff gets suppressed inside of us, as you know. And so that's the first thing. We disconnect from our feelings, and that starts creating energetic layers of unfelt feeling and emotion that just sort of start clouding up our soul shine, start clouding up our true essence, so to speak. And so the layers start building up, and then we learn to go into the world, and we look around at our parents, and maybe we were free and laughing and joking, and someone said, be quiet or shut up or what have you. And we learn, shoot, it's not okay for me to be wild or free or happy. And so we start adapting ourselves, becoming these chameleons, in the sense of, who do I need to be in order to be loved? Who do I need to be in order to fit in? Who do I need to be in order for my dad to love me? So we start developing these roles, these masks, these personas to just get love, be approved, fit in, be validated, not rock the boat. And so we develop these masks. Maybe we become the nice person, the know-it-all, the responsible one, the caretaker. I mean, the yes person, the list goes on and on. I mean, I think as people listening, you can just look at your life and look at the roles that you have adopted, the masks that you've adopted. And so we start adopting these masks because they get us love, they get us validation, they get us, care, connection. They get us a sense of belonging. And so we end up thinking we are those roles. And the more we do them, the more we get identified with them. They work for us when we were 5 or 6 or 8 or 10 or 15. But most of the time, what worked for us when we were 5, 16, 18, we reach a point in our lives where it starts getting in the way. These roles, these masks starts inhibiting the next level of our freedom, communication, intimacy, connection. And so, but many times we think, no, cool, that's just, just who I am. I am that way. That's just me. And so really, I think one of the first steps is to realize we are free, then to realize, wait a second, we then get conditioned. So we're conditioned. Most of us don't realize we're conditioned. We just think that's who we are. I'm just that way, Matt. That's just me. No, is that really you? Or is it simply who you've been conditioned to be? No, it's who I am. So I think the first step is we have to start becoming conscious and aware of the fact we're conditioned, the degree to which we're conditioned, and we have to be willing to start questioning ourselves, questioning our conditioning. Is that really me? Who am I? Like, do I really believe that? What do I really believe? Where did I get that from? And start investigating, start that process of questioning. And I think that's another simple step, to begin a process of questioning. Like, what do I really believe? How do I know that for sure? Is that really mine, or was that just was that just passed down by my parents and my grandparents? And so I think as we start questioning, that begins another process. It begins another process. Another thing I'll say in terms of if someone is beginning a process, one of the things I found that often keeps, I don't know if we spoke about this in the first interview, but one of the things that often keeps us stuck are all the ways we lie to ourselves, all the ways we BS ourselves, we lie to ourselves. We're just, rationalizing and settling. No, I don't feel that. No, I'm not that. No. And so I think to truly create a shift in our lives is so important. First step too, one of the first steps is the willingness to start telling the truth to ourselves. Start telling the truth to ourselves about what we feel. To start telling the truth to ourselves about our lives, about who we are. And I think that's a huge, simple, but not always easy, because we're often afraid, oh my God, if I tell the truth about what I feel, then what will happen to my life? If I tell the truth to myself about the fact I'm not happy, or if I tell the truth to myself about the fact that I hate my job, or I'm in a relationship that isn't truly aligned, what are the consequences? What will happen? And so there's so many ways we lie to ourselves, so many ways we play this game of confusion, since the sense of, I don't really know. I'm not sure. I don't know what my purpose is. I don't know who I am. I don't know. And deep down, we do know. And I think the willingness to tell the truth to ourselves also begins a very profound process. I say, look, freedom is simple. It's not, but the challenge is freedom is not always free. It will require that you give up certain things. And happiness is simple. It just requires that you acknowledge the truth, feel the truth, tell the truth, live the truth, end of story. Simple. But we often don't, because of our conditioning, because of our fear, the fear of, if I really feel the truth or experience the truth, that because, as children, perhaps because we learn to adjust ourselves, we learn, wow, if I'm a certain way, I get love, and if I'm a certain way, I don't get love. So in a sense, we may have experienced love as being conditional in some way. And so there's this sense of, oh, I need to be this way in order to get love. And out of that, we learn to lie about who we are. We learn to pretend we're something that we're not in order to get love. And so that kind of unconscious lying starts from a very young age. And so I think if we can become aware and just start telling the truth, because we're afraid, if I really tell the truth, if I'm really who I am, if I really feel what I feel, then I won't be loved, then I'm going to be abandoned, then I'm going to be alone. And there's a deep fear I think many of us have. If I'm really who I am, if I really show myself, then you won't love me, then I'm going to be alone, then I'll be by myself. And the sad thing is, when we give up who we are, we're essentially alone anyway within ourselves. And I think there's a deep sadness that many of us have. That's a sort of quiet sadness that we don't really know why there's that sadness that arises from being disconnected from ourselves. So the willingness, I think, to tell the truth and feel the truth. So I'd ask people to ask themselves this question: what lies are you telling yourself? What lies are you telling yourself? What are you pretending to not know? Because sometimes we pretend, but we do know. So what are you pretending to not know? And to feel that, what is it costing you? And to feel the pain of what it's costing you to lie to yourself, and actually feel that and experience that, and like let the pain of the disconnect, let it burn inside. Many times we feel the truth and then we're afraid, so we distract ourselves. We shop it away, we sex it away, we work it away, we social media away, just so that we don't have to feel the truth. And so I think if we can do that, that's a beginning.
Man, that's amazing. You see, you said a lot there. I was like, oh my God, it's taking notes. It's really core and fundamental operating systems. What I would love to hear you speak on, because you grazed over it, and I think it was really powerful. It's just the happiness part. and just going into that a little bit, because these things, like you said, they're not complicated. But they're not always easy, because it will require, maybe you'll change a relationship, maybe you'll change friends, maybe someone will react in a way you don't expect them to. Maybe it'll be even better than you expect them to. But the most important thing is you're being honest to yourself. And when you can have radical transparency in your own mind, you with you, and so then that human being is the one that represents themselves in the world. And if you can do that, you are operating in freedom. And it's when you start to change that to fit all these other molds or past conditioning, then you're kind of enslaving yourself and how you experience life, because it's coming from, let's say, a thought form or an energy, that's protecting you. Essentially, it's your protection mechanism, so you don't experience that pain. So maybe you can speak a little bit on the happiness element, because again, it was very simple but really profound.
Yeah, I think many times we're not deeply happy because we are. I give you a personal example. When I was 14, my father announced to his congregation. My father had 300 churches, hundreds of thousands of followers. He was a healer, a teacher, what have you. A great man, still alive. He announced to his congregation, "My son is taking over my churches." I looked and I thought, "I am." I mean, there was no discussion. And so all of a sudden he announces to the whole congregation, "I'm taking over." And in that moment, I knew it wasn't right. I knew in my heart that that was not the aligned decision. It wasn't truly aligned for me. But I went along with it ultimately because I wanted to help people. I wasn't sure how. And the truth is, I was too afraid to say anything. I wanted his love, his approval. And I knew it wasn't aligned. So whenever we are not in alignment, whenever we don't honor what we feel, there is suffering. There is suffering, and I think many of us were not in alignment. We're not in that deep honoring of our truth because we're afraid. We're afraid to rock the boat. We're afraid of being alone. We're afraid, whatever the reason is, whatever the excuse is. We're afraid of if I'm honest about the fact that I hate my job, then how am I going to survive? And so we kind of rationalize. And so it's hard to really be deeply, truly happy when we're living out of alignment. It's hard to, people often come to me and say, "Could help me be happy?" And I would say, well, look at everything in your life that is not in alignment. Look at everything in your life where you're not telling the truth and bring it into alignment. No, 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 no. Give me a few techniques so I can just be happy. It's like, well, it doesn't really work like that. If it's kind of like if you walk down the street, Matt, and you pick up a pile of dog shit, you eat a pile of dog shit, and you go, "This tastes horrible. Can you help me like feel good?" Well, if you eat shit, it's gonna taste like shit, and shit tastes like shit because it's shit. It's meant to feel like shit. And so when we are living disconnected, it's not like shit's gonna taste like ice cream. It's not meant to. Shit is meant to be shitty. And so when we are living disconnected, then suffering is to me, unhappiness is not a bad thing. Unhappiness is a beautiful thing. Unhappiness is a compass. It's a signal of our souls letting us know, wait a second, you're not really in alignment. And so, but the challenge is many times we don't want to give up doing or let go of what we're holding on to that's keeping us stuck. We want to hold on to doing this shitty thing. We want to hold on to this relationship that doesn't work. We want to stay in the job and have the safety, even though that's the thing that's really not making us happy, but we want to be happy. It doesn't work. So we have to be willing to let go of what we have that is not in alignment, that we know isn't, in order to really open to more, yes, go into the unknown so that we can create the space to bring ourselves into flow, into sync, into alignment. And so that's why I say happiness isn't free or freedom isn't free. It requires that we let go of something. So I would ask everyone listening right now, and most of the time we know what we need to let go of. Most of the time we know this relationship is not really, it's not really quite aligned for me. We know, or this job isn't. We know deep down, and so I think we have to want. Let me phrase it this way: we have to want the truth more than we want what we have. We have to want the truth more than we want what we think we want. We think we want this thing, and so we hold on to it. But it's like it's so not in alignment with where we're seeking to go. But we hold on to it. So we have to want the truth. We have to want happiness and freedom more than we want this little comfort zone, this thing over here. And so I think when we realize that, we have to make a choice and have the courage. Like, you know what? I want the truth, more than I want my situation. I want the truth more than I want the comfort zone. And sure, we might lose people. People may fall out of our lives, situations, jobs, etc. But I believe that in the process of being honest, in the process of telling the truth, in the process of moving ourselves into alignment, whatever you lose, whoever falls out of your life was definitely not in alignment with your highest in the first place. You will lose friends, you will lose people, but whatever you lose was not truly aligned with your next level. And the next level that is often waiting for you as a result of the deeper alignment, as a result of aligning with the truth, is more amazing than I think we can imagine. So I think happiness is easy, but our conditioning and our fear is part of what often stops us, you know. And so it takes a little bit of courage. It takes a little bit of courage.
Amazing, brother. Yeah, yeah. Very beautiful answer. I couldn't agree more. One of my mentors, Michael Loze, would talk about just if you, let's say you're in an abundance level and you want more abundance or relationship or life, right? Your overall life, you scale it out of 100. And let's just say job, it's specific. And overall, your job is a 70 because it gives you the money, but overall you hate it or something. And so if you want to get to like a radio frequency to level 89 on your career or 92.5 FM, you have to literally let go of that 70 FM dial. You can't be holding 70 FM and 90 FM, and that's what people really, it's a challenge, and that's why it's the plunge. It's not dipping your toe in one side. It's like boom, cut the cord to 70. And I like to say, see what you're made of, because that 70 situation will always be waiting for you. You can always get if it doesn't work out, I guarantee whatever job or situation you had will be just waiting there, sitting for you to come back at any time.
To eating shit. It's always going to be on the street.
Yeah. Yeah, right. Totally. But it requires that plunge. And that's where, but that's a great gift for yourself, because when you do it, you felt that courage, right? You felt that growth. You felt your character development. You felt, that was you that did that. Nobody outside of you. It was your own love and willingness for yourself to experience life, and listen to your gut. That's a beautiful thing. And you get that from fear.
Yeah, when I was 14 and my father said, my son's taking over, my life was set out for me, and I knew in my heart that something wasn't right. 4 years, I experienced deep unhappiness, sadness, you could say frustration inside, fear. Took me 4 years to muster up the courage to have a conversation with my father at age 18 and look him in the eyes and tell him I'm not taking over. And literally, basically I had to be willing to let go of my relationship with my father, which, as a teenager, it's a big deal. But I looked into my future and I saw, well, if I follow the expected path, and many of us, we are following the expected path. You cannot live a happy life, a truly fulfilled, authentic, and happy life, living someone else's life. You cannot live a truly authentic and happy life being someone that you're not. And so many times we're being someone that we're not and wondering, well, why am I not happy? Well, yeah, we're not. You can't be happy being someone that you're not. You can't be happy living someone else's life. And I think, and so that's why unhappiness is a gift. Unhappiness is a blessing. Unhappiness is a teacher. It's showing us where we need to adjust. We just have to have the courage. So as I looked into my future, I saw, wow, I could be successful by the world standards, living someone else's life, living my father's vision for my life. But if I do that, wow, it was like a soul death. I looked into my future and I just saw this soul suicide. And in that moment, I realized, you know what? If I don't have myself, if I have the world, if I have fame in the world and all of these amazing things, but I don't have myself, then what do I have? What do I have? Because at the end of the day, we all have to be able to look ourselves when no one is around. We have to be able to look ourselves in the mirror in the middle of the night and feel a sense of peace. And if you can't look yourself in the mirror in the middle of the night and feel a sense of peace in terms of this is who I am, then doesn't matter what you've achieved, doesn't matter how many books you have, how much money in the bank account, this and that, you will not feel happy. And so to me, the real sense of happiness is the knowingness that you are living your truth, you are living authentically, you are living in alignment with who you are, because then this is a happiness that is internal. It's a happiness that is of beingness. It's a happiness that's not coming from a goal that you attained or this thing that happened, most of that happiness out there that is based on function and form is transitory. It's dependent on this thing happening and that thing happening and this thing happening and that thing not happening and attaining that thing and being number one, and all that stuff is transitory. So if your happiness is tied to all those impermanent transitory things, then you're going to go up and you're going to go down. To me, that is not real happiness. Real happiness is something deeper, that which cannot be taken away from you. So real happiness is not about what you do or achieve, but it's about just being connected to the state of your own natural beingness, and that is not dependent on the economy or you or Matt liking me or having a number one podcast. It's just, yeah, I feel good inside of myself. I feel connected inside of myself. And I really believe that when you really feel that internal vibrancy, that inner aliveness within yourself, and you start living from that place and radiating from that place, and you start becoming infectious, and people around you want to start being around you, and things start flowing, and life starts flowing from the inside out, and then life starts happening, things start happening, success starts happening, because who doesn't want to be around someone that is feeling comfortable in themselves and alive and vibrant? Because we all feel good around people that feel connected, because it reminds us of who we are. And so I believe the happier we are, the more potentially successful we can be in the world, in a sense. And so I think that's a few things on happiness.
Beautiful, man. Yeah, you're touching on timeless lessons, right? It's being able to create that happiness within you 100% of the time, regardless of the external circumstances, because they don't do that. And the more you're loving and honoring yourself and who you are, being radically transparent, this is going to allow you to create those things that you love. Let's say you're an artist, and you're doing this other job. And as you move towards art and you start to, go to art classes and things like that, well, naturally, by you just doing the things that you love, you're going to create art friends. You're going to create a whole new paradigm. And now your reality is doing art or whatever the case is, but it required you to move. It required you to put a little bit of courage to put that energy in. And it just kind of makes rational sense. So I guess where I want to go with this, which, we're kind of touching on spirituality and our connection with ourselves, but also spirit. And I know that your background's pretty fascinating. Your father's work is very fascinating. We touched on that. And a lot of the podcasts that I go into is figuring out, and for me too, my own exploration is what is possible for me as a human. The last podcast, can I astral project out of my body? Well, I've kind of done it like once, but I've been able to lucid dream. And I've had these experiences in meditation that it is kind of like astral projection, but it's not the same way that William was describing it. And so if I can remove this spirit body out of me and do this thing. You've got Dr. Joe Dispenza, who's helping people cure themselves of terminal illnesses with meditation. So that's a miracle, right? You've got people that are massive energy healers. So with this rant, I just kind of wanted to, ask your opinion on what you think is possible in this body as a human in this time, around like creating our own miracles, or even just creating a deeper connection with God and spirit in all things, because I think they're intertwined.
Right. In terms of, it's a big question, right? And so I don't believe. I think everything is possible. I always come from a standpoint of everything is possible. My first memories as a young boy, around age 6, 7, 8, was literally like one of the first memories I have was seeing a crippled woman crawling on the floor, crippled. And she was crawling, and there were thousands of people in the crowd, and I was lost in the crowd, and she was crawling, and she picks up the sand that this man walks on and wipes it on her face and stands up. This man was my father. And so week after week, I grew up seeing blind people see and deaf people hear, and people stand up at wheelchairs. My father would look at a woman in a wheelchair and say, "Why are you in this wheelchair?" "But I'm sick." "You're not sick. Stand up. Why are you in this wheelchair?" "Well, do you believe?" "Yeah, I believe." "So if you believe, why are you sitting down? Stand up." Boom. And she would stand up. And so I grew up seeing week after week these crazy, seemingly that were normal for me at the time, because I was 7, 8 years old. I didn't know any different. And so I grew up seeing these miracles that are beautiful and amazing and magnificent, and so I really believe that everything is possible if we're open to it. Everything is happening. Everything is, and so I don't. What I feel is, I don't think we need to create these miracles. I think in our spiritual world, in our spiritual field, in the consciousness field, there's a danger that can be a little egoic danger of practitioners, people going, yeah, I make miracles. Yes, look at me. I'm the master shaman. I do all this stuff. Woo, look at me. I can move your energy. It's like I can do all this stuff. And I think that just reinforces, if we're not careful, a spiritual identity. It reinforces a spiritual ego. Donald Trump might have a material ego, but we end up having this spiritual ego. Oh, look at where I can elevate to the 17th dimension and send energy and do all this stuff. It's like, okay, this is great, maybe, possibly, it is what it is. But I really believe that we don't create miracles. Miracles are already existing in the universe. And so I think it's really less about you making it happen, us making it happen, but if anything, dissolving and you could say getting ourselves out of the way, really surrendering ourselves and being willing to go to zero, make ourselves zero and get ourselves out of the way and surrender ourselves to life, to spirit, to the divine, to God, to whatever, but truly surrender ourselves to that which is living everything. Because right now, we can argue or not, but the fact is we are being lived, we are being breathed. We're being breathed by something. You and I aren't sitting here going, we are being breathed. The ego wants to be like, yeah, I'm going to do this. We're being breathed. Your food is digesting. You ate something yesterday, it's digesting. Something's happening. There is something, intelligence, consciousness, blah, blah, blah. The same intelligence that's birthing the sun, the moon, the stars, the galaxies, the cat, the dog, the tadpoles, the water, the oceans, the trees. It's that intelligence of life, consciousness, pure spirit, whatever label you want to put on it, I don't care. But we are all a part of that intelligence. And so to me, it's not like we have to make something happen. I'm going to make this miracle happen. But I think it's important we just get ourselves out the way so that we can allow the energy and intelligence that is life to flow through us, to move through us. It's already moving, but to just move unrestricted through our own conditioned prism, the more we can uncondition ourselves to allow this stream of energy that is already flowing to move through us, our mind body mechanisms, then I think the more we bring ourselves in the flow of miracles, then the more it does the work. And if you look at any of the truly great people, you won't find Jesus saying, yo, Matt, it was me. I did it. I'm the man. You don't find Jesus would always say, I don't do the work, but the Father does the work. All the great people, all the great ones, I of myself can do nothing. It is being done by the great one, the divine, the spirit, whatever it. And then I think we open ourselves to an infinite possibility, to an infinite stream. Then the fullness of the miracles of life can happen through us. Because what we can do, yeah, you and I, we're powerful beings. We can do some powerful things of our own limited personas. But what life can do through us, beyond us, is way more than what we can do of our own limited egoic selves. And so I think it's less about creating miracles, which the ego loves to think it's like, oh, I made a miracle. Woo, it's me. I did it. And because it gets a little trip from that, and getting ourselves out of the way to realize there is no do. There is no doer that does anything. It's being done. And then we become empty. We become nothing. We become zero. We become hollow. We become that vessel. Jesus was a vessel. Buddha was a vessel. Maybe Gandhi, Mother Teresa. Any of the group became just vessels. And so that requires a certain surrender. That requires the ego doesn't like that. The ego doesn't like that very much because it requires a certain giving up of its own identification to life. And so, but I believe that that's where we are called to go to really live in the zone of miracles. And I think that's the surrender that the deeper I go, the less I realize I know, and the more humbled I become as a spiritual practitioner, because I realize the less I know. And so I think the surrender is the freedom. And in the surrender, you realize you're not doing anything. It's being done. We're being done. We're all being done by that which is doing everything. And that's the magic. I would look at I had conversations with my father, if you want to talk about miracles for real. My father was known as the miracle man of Africa. My father was the spiritual teacher to four presidents, two kings in Ghana, a lot of leaders in West Africa. He was known as the miracle man of Africa, started performing his first miracle at age 15. And I mean, I could go on and on about the miracles I've seen and the miracles that have happened. But when I asked him, how do you do miracles? How do you perform miracles? This is not from someone who wrote a book about miracles. This is from someone who, like 50, 60 years, performed them. And so I asked him, how do you do it? And one of the great men, you could say miracle workers, looked at me and said, well, I don't know. I don't do it. I don't know. I just show up. I don't know. It wasn't like, well, you align yourself with the seventh step and then do this and you do this and I do. It's just, I don't know. I just show up. There's innocence. There's no mind. There's no thinking. It's not me. It's life. I just show up and just say yes, and it happens. And so there was I think, a profound humility, in that. And I think if we can live that way, like innocently, to live in the innocence, to live like, and this is not like a religious conversation at all, but Jesus, I remember Jesus would say something like, you must be like children in order to enter the kingdom of heaven. To me, the kingdom of heaven is more of a state of consciousness, a possibility. So you must be like children. What does that mean? To me, to have the innocence, the innocence of just, I don't know. You look at Bruce Lee. Bruce Lee talked about no mind, be like water, not get caught up in a form, just flow like water. It's like just innocence, to not live just in the calculated mind that's trying to figure everything out. And then we will see real miracles. And I think the last thing I'll say is I was in London last week having a conversation with this Japanese woman. And she was saying, you've been around all these amazing miracles. I don't know, miracles happen in my life. Nothing happens in my life. Oh my God, you see all these miracles, nothing happens. I'm like, are you freaking crazy? She's 82 years old. I'm like, you are 82 years old and you have more energy than me. You have more energy than me, a young guy. You are running around, going here, going there. I know 70-year-olds who can't even walk. You are 82 years old. You are healing people. She's a massage therapist. She is just full of energy. I'm like, just who you are is a miracle. And so many times we're looking for these extraordinary things. We want to, like, and nothing wrong with astral projection or going to past lives or this or that, but we want to elevate, want to see this miracle, want to see a blind person here, want to go to the Himalayas and these extraordinary things, want to have our chakras blown out into 14 million pieces. But the reality is, that's all great, but I think the more we're able in real life to embrace the ordinary, just meant this moment, because as I look at you and as I look at everyone who might be watching or listening to this, as I look into your eyes, I see what is looking at me. You are nodding your head. What the hell is nodding through Matt right now? It's like, that's a miracle that some intelligence is like making you laugh and here I am animated. And we can have a conversation and kind of understand each other through words and sounds and see colors and touch. And it's like, I think the reality is just the everyday moment of life, this existence is, if we lose touch with it, but if we really bring our awareness to it, is absolutely miraculous. The fact that I can say something, you can understand it. The fact that we can eat food and it digests and it gives us, it's like, it's unbelievable, this existence, this human, existence, orgasms and colors and touch and taste, and just the ordinary moments of life are truly filled with grace and miracles. And I think when we can embrace that, to be in life fully, to fully be in our body, to fully be in life, to fully embrace all of it, all of the mundane as divine, all of the mundane as sacred. It's all sacred, not like, oh, I'm in the Himalayas, it's sacred. No, I'm stuck in traffic. I'm sitting here, I'm just changing diapers. I'm cooking food. I'm eating food. I'm drinking a glass of water. It's like, what if you drank a glass of water and it didn't go down and you couldn't digest it? It's like, now you'd have a problem. And so all these mundane things, just extraordinary. And so really there are no ordinary moments. you know. And so the more I think we bring our attention and consciousness to the miracle that each moment actually is, it's actually mind blowing what we are living. It's mind blowing. Like, it is mind. You don't have to do ayahuasca, or you don't have to go to Machu Picchu, although I love Machu Picchu, you know. Just sit at home in the middle of Los Angeles, in New York, and look around and go, oh my God, this is amazing, you know. And so then I think we start living the miracle. We start realizing you and I are the miracle. You know, it's beyond gratitude. You know, it's a celebration of everything as sacred, as miraculous, as divine. I think then life takes on a whole different flavor.
My friend, that was exceptional. I love that, man. That's an amazing way to close a podcast. I wish I could let you rant for another hour on just that, because I could see you're fired up. But, you know, you hit a lot of incredible points. I know you got to jump on to another interview. You're a busy man, but you're doing it. You're putting the intention out there. You're putting, you know, the work. You're walking the talk. And so I love and appreciate you for that. And I encourage your path. And so where can people find a hold of you? And we'll let you get on.
And it's been a joy hanging with you, brother. And thank you for, you know, having me back and sharing your love. I feel so welcome. For those that, you know, feel maybe inspired by this conversation, I would love for you to, my website is www.kuteblackson.com. People can find me there. Also, if anyone feels perhaps a desire for a deeper dive, twice a year I do something really special. I do these amazing 12-day journeys to Bali, Indonesia. So for those that are leaders, or they feel a calling to make a difference on the planet, they can find out more about my transformational journey. It's at www.boundlessblissbali.com. Take a look there. And I'm on social media, Instagram, Kute Blackson, Facebook, Kute Blackson. Hit me up, say hi. Let me know you heard me on this podcast.
Awesome, brother. Well, thank you so much, man. Deep, deep love and gratitude. I appreciate seeing you again. It's always a pleasure. You're welcome back anytime, man. So, yeah, have a great day. We'll catch you soon.
Sounds good.
See you, everybody.